BronxWorks does a variety of different things with the street homeless population. For 17 years now, we've had the contract to provide outreach in the borough. And we operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We've also had a drop-in center for street homeless people for about 15 years. And the drop-in center stays open. We try to be as exclusive as we possibly can to people who are on the street and who are chronically homeless. And finally, a couple of years ago, we added a safe haven program. And a safe haven program, and Sam was mentioning it earlier, they're shelter-like programs without a lot of rules. And in our safe haven program, we have small cubicles where the wall goes up 7 feet. You know, it's not a permanent place to stay, but we try to make it as attractive as possible for those individuals who are the most chronically homeless. In our safe haven program, we also focus on individuals with the most serious psychiatric problems and the most serious medical problems. One of the things that we've noticed over the last several months is out of our 50 beds, on average of between 5 and 7 clients that are in a safe haven bed are in a hospital inpatient unit someplace, mostly in the Bronx. So we're focusing on individuals who are, you know, really sick or have really serious psychiatric problems. Finally, 2.5 years ago, we started partnering with Common Ground to provide services in a Common Ground owned and operated building in the Bronx called the Brook. In the Brook, we have around 127 special needs units. Of those, 92 or 93, I can never get the numbers exactly right, were for people who were chronically street homeless. And I also think it's important for people to understand what chronic street homelessness is. For many, many years when we were doing outreach, we would notice that you'd see somebody. In fact, most of the people you would see on the street, especially in the summer, you'd see them 1 or 2 times, and then they'd go back to their families. Or you get them into a detox program or whatever. They were very, very difficult to track. And my sense, and the sense of our staff is, a lot of people who are on the street at any given time find a way to get off the street by themselves. They get their life together. They get the drug treatment that they need. They reconcile with their family, you know, and they move on. Those individuals who stay on the street through a year or through a couple of years are a different breed. They require a lot more services. They require a very strategic approach. Sometimes it takes months or years to engage with them, to get them to work with your staff, to get them to think about permanent housing. When we first started, it was really frustrating. I mean, in our drop-in center, in our outreach program, we almost never got anybody housed. You know, this was before Housing First, the Housing First model took hold. So what would happen is, you know, it's really, really hard to be clean and sober and psychiatrically stable when you're sleeping in a chair in a drop-in center, even when the staff is being nice to you, or when you're in a safe haven program or a stabilization bed. It's impossible, to my mind, to get clean and sober and psychiatrically stable if you're living under the Bruckner Expressway. It's not going to happen. And if you go up and you ask the average guy what they want, nobody says, oh, you know, I want to go to a drug treatment program for the next 9 months and, you know, be isolated from all my friends and family. And, you know, nobody ever says that. Every once in a while, you get somebody to go into a drug treatment program. But for our folks, for the guys that were living on the street, especially those individuals who were most chronically homeless, I mean, they just, you know, what they wanted in what we could provide were 2 different things. So about 2005, things began to change. We started focusing on the street-to-home approach. Becky Canis from Common Ground went around and talked to all the different agencies. We got started a little earlier before DHS required us to get started. You know, we started making lists of people who we knew were chronically homeless and really focused on what we needed to do to get them to move along into permanent housing. When the Brook opened a couple of years ago with Common Ground, we found a willing partner, a group that agreed with us that what we were going to do is virtually no creaming. So people came to their appointments that were sometimes high and drunk, and they got apartments. And you know what I think as it turns out, you know, and we didn't do a study of this, but whether you're high or drunk or how you're perceived at your interview really doesn't make a lot of difference. It's not a very good predictor as to how whether or not you're going to succeed in permanent housing. And, you know, we gave people a chance. I think there might have been one person of the initial group that we turned away, and the individual was a sex offender, and there's a school down the street. You know, I think every single other person, and there's other people who, in this room that may know this a little bit better than I, we gave a chance, and we gave an apartment. And I will say to this day, it's worked out for the vast majority of them. Now, has it been hard? Have we had trials and tribulations? We've earned every penny of the DOH, MH money that we've gotten. We've had our share of incidents. And I think DOH, MH, for a while, they were alarmed at the number of incidents. It's actually no surprise, you know, thanks to, to the research CUCS has done, that this is a group of people who are challenging to work with and deal with. But that's what we're in existence to do. And again, I think it's really important. The overwhelming majority of people are successful. Even those that come, they're dry. I mean, they're high, they're drunk, they're not psychiatrically stable because they've been living on the street for years and years and years. The other thing that we noticed, and again, we haven't done a study of this, but people get better once they get into their own apartment. Once they have their own roof over their head, there's countless stories of people who are now clean and sober for the first time, who now take their medications the way they're prescribed, and are now doing very well. There's people who've had problems. You know, not everyone has been able to keep their apartment. But again, our stats are that since 2005, more than 90% of the people who we've placed in permanent housing have retained it. In the last year, I did look at the numbers over the last year, we placed 62 people. Our outreach team, drop-in center, and Safe Haven program placed 62 people into permanent housing. And again, most of these people were on the street for more than a year. And out of the 62, 100% of them are still in permanent housing. That doesn't mean to say that some of those individuals aren't having problems. I'm sure some of them are having significant problems, but it's been a year and they still all have a roof over their heads. One of the things that I think it's important to say, and it's a difficult thing to say, and I'm saying this more on the perspective of our outreach, our staff that deal with people before they're permanently housed, is that we still have a great deal of difficulty getting our chronically homeless guys in supportive housing programs. There's really only a few programs that accept our guys. And it is very common. Our housing specialist, who's excellent, tells me he hears things like, look, we've interviewed your client. We're not concerned about your client's criminal background or anything like that, but we just don't think we can provide the level of services that this individual requires. And when I hear that, what I think is that condemns the person to either living in a safe haven program or a drop-in center or staying on the street. Because there's really no alternative. If we don't give these guys a chance, living on the street, as far as I'm concerned, is just a completely unacceptable option for anybody. So that's what I would like to say today. And again, thank you very much.